corners and it flows like water.
What's up, guys, and welcome to Movie Importance Flashback Reviews, where I take movies from the past, break them down, and tell you what I think about them. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button, join Movie Emporium, hit the notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next, and of course, comment below on any video that you watch on my channel. So today I'm going to talk about a film that I consider a modern horror classic, that of course is 1996's Scream. Scream is of course directed by Wes Craven, written by Kevin Williamson, who's done stuff like Jocelyn's Creek, and is like I said, it's a meta commentary on the horror genre itself. It's a movie that is taking tropes and defying expectation of what you're going to expect in this film. Yes, it's still a horror film, but like I said, it's using the Scream Queen, it's using the killers, it's using the idea of horror films as themselves, just in a different light. It's one of the most original horror films that you'll see in at least the last 30 years. And I put up in the pantheon of stuff like Psycho. You know, it's a movie that is just well made and well put together. And that's in best part because of who Wes Craven is. Wes Craven is a horror director at its finest. You know, he's done stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, he's done stuff like People Under the Stairs, so on and so forth. Shocker. You know, he does these movies that defy the expectations of what horror is. And you look at Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's a film about a serial killer who is killing children, and you know, the nastiness behind that. But Scream, in its essence, is a film about a high schooler played by Neve Campbell, who plays Sidney Prescott, and she is a woman who has recently lost someone. What as most people do in horror films, they lose someone and it affects them. And of course, this movie takes place a year after that effect, and you know, she and her father are just trying to move past the situation. But what sets this up so nicely to make her have to deal with the situation again is the very beginning of this movie, which is really, really fascinating. This movie was marketed as a very heavily Drew Barrymore project. At this point, she's a very famous actress. She's just getting over her, you know, issues with drug abuse and so on and so forth. And it was a look to form, like a reform of her character or actress nature. And what happens 12 minutes into this movie, she is killed off, which is insane because, you know, like Janet Leigh in Psycho, when they're marketed as almost like the main lead actress, the perception of reality or the perception of expectations is you think Drew Barrymore is going to run through this movie and be almost like the main actress of this movie. And it's not. Of course, it's Neve Campbell's character, as we know. But that idea that you defy expectations, that you are willing to go there, that you're willing to pay homage to stuff like Halloween and of course Psycho, is really, really fascinating and really interesting. And it's a very simple story of her trying to get past the idea of not only her mother dying, but trying to deal with the situation at hand, which is these killers that are killing not only her friends, but people that she knows, and they have a link to her past with her mother. But it's just a very interesting take on the horror genre itself. You know, the idea that Kevin Williamson, who has not done Dawson's Creek at this point, really knows how to write high school characters, which is really, really fascinating because all these actors and actresses in this movie are over the age of 25, but they really play it well, and it's based off Kevin Williamson's script, which is really well paced, which is really well, you know, it's a unique structure to it because, you know, not only are these characters in this style of horror film, but they're commentating on horror film. You know, Jamie Kennedy, who plays Randy, is almost like our surrogate for this film, which is awesome. You know, he's telling us how this story is playing out in a non-linear sense. So for instance, we learn about like how the Scream Queen stays alive throughout the movie is because she doesn't have sex. She's very strong-willed, and she just has this idea, and it's just like he points out while they're watching Halloween, which is really funny. But that's what makes it so cool. And then you have the stereotypical characters. You know, you have the David Arquette as Dewey. You have Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, who's the news reporter. And Dewey's of course, the local police officer that's, you know, in the mix. And they're playing off tropes of characters, but the characters are so well written that you actually enjoy watching them as tropes, you know, even though, Gale Weathers is like kind of a jerk. She's a fun, fantastic jerk that has so much fun with the character that she's doing. And it's nice to see Courteney Cox play against her type when she was doing Friends at the time. But of course, you have characters like, Skeet Ulrich, who plays Billy. You have Matthew Lillard, who plays Stu. And they are, of course, the characters that are being pinpointed as the killers. But because of how the script is written, how much pacing they've done to kind of, push you away from who they are, to kind of make you think that they're not the killers, when the eventual reveal happens, you're still surprised. I'm sure a lot of people were expecting these people to be the killers. It's kind of obvious when you think about it now. But because of the misdirection and because of the use of certain things, the fact that, when Billy's in jail and Sydney's at her friend's house, who's played by Rose McGowan, she gets a call from the Ghostface killer, and it actually misconstrues or misconcepts the idea that Billy may not be the killer. But it also is a very interesting fact that there's two people working together as one killer, so it makes it easier for them to plan. And that's what makes it so unique to when they get to the party eventually at the end, and you see how everything plays out, that these two guys who end up being the killers, the fact that you're so misdirected and so confused, it just makes it that much more satisfying. Because if you think about it now, if you really look at it, it's so obvious and in your face that these two guys are the killers that it almost seems like it's kind of goofy in a way. It's almost like, what was I thinking? How did I fall for this? And I do think that Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson did a little bit better in Scream 2, where they really misdirected you, with the characters, the bad guys, and who they are. It's really interesting to see. But right here, right now, it's really fun to watch. The thing that also surprises me about this movie is how planned out this whole scenario is. Not only is it's not really explained. It could have been given a lot more. But I started wondering while I was watching this movie, especially with Stu and Billy, I'm like sitting here going, how long were these guys planning this? Probably a year. And how meticulous were they in the things that they were doing? I mean, these guys are played like idiots in a way, but they have to be really smart because they have to go on the fly if something messes up. For instance, during the party scene when, Billy and Sydney eventually get together, have sex and all that stuff, you have what I'm assuming is Stu coming into the room as the killer, and he fakes Billy's death. And the idea that they're probably thinking that Sydney, who's now no longer the Scream Queen that you're expecting, that it's going to be really easy to kill her, really easy to frame her, because that's what their plan is. But she proves to be a foil for them, so she's finding ways to get out of the situation. So the fact that these killers have to think on the fly was something that's, I think, is really well, cleverly put together, that is not really obvious to the viewer when they're watching it. For instance, when she gets into the car and she rolls up the windows, locks the doors, they think about, oh, they got to get the keys for the car, or they got to do this, and this. The fact that they're hiding, the fact that they go around. And they're some of the most clever, some of the most smart villains that are duped by an even smarter protagonist, which is really funny. The idea of they're going to stab each other to, kind of frame Sydney, and the fact that she gets away and she calls the police and she does this. It's really cool to see how much smarter Sydney really is, and the fact that she's not a normal Scream Queen in a sense. She's a very headstrong, a very smart. She is much more agile and versatile than these other two. And that's what well-written characters do, is they know how to go above the other characters. So when we're looking at violent, horrifying moments, it's interesting to see how the structure of the screenplay is really played out. And that's what the power of good screenwriting is. And that's why Kevin Williamson has done such great material work in, past and future, recently, that it's really fascinating. But I think, like I said, I think Wes Craven, being a horror genre guy and having done stuff like this before, I think he knows what makes effective horror, what makes effective storytelling, and what makes effective plotting. That he probably helped Kevin Williamson in writing this. And, I guess this was a spec script that Kevin Williamson had sold, so I'm sure, Wes Craven worked on the script a little bit to kind of flesh it out. But it's so sad that he passed away so early in his life, that he finally gave us a fourth Scream, but it wasn't the same. And you know, the stuff he could have done afterwards, but after he eventually passed away, it makes Scream itself even more prescient in the ideas of who and what Wes Craven was as a director. But like I said, it's a movie that has a lot of fun things to say. You know, Henry Winkler pops up as an uncredited role as the, you know, principal, and he has a lot of great material there. It's nice to see Earl Brown is in this movie as the camera reporter, and he has a nice cool death, and he's just a lot of fun as like the guy that's just kind of going with the flow, and it plays out. This is the movie that really sets itself apart in the fact that Scream 2 kind of plays off the tropes of the first movie, which is really funny, with the fact that the cameraman's all skittish. You know, all these characters are more, you know, realized, and they're more afraid of the situation, and they build upon that. And that's why Scream 2 is, you know, just a great counterpart to this movie. But and with that said, like I said, you know, Neve Campbell was amazing in this movie as Sidney Prescott. Skeet Ulrich is amazing as Billy. Matthew Lillard is amazing as Stu. Rose McGowan is amazing in this movie. You know, David Arquette, Courteney Cox, Earl Brown. It's just fun to see. Like I said, it's a very simple story that has a lot of commentary behind it, and the fact that we get that commentary as it's moving along, I just think it's a fun movie. It's a beautiful movie for what it is, and I think it's worth watching. If you haven't watched this movie, sorry to spoil it for you, but you know, you should have seen it now. It's 23 years old now, but otherwise, yeah, it's a great movie. So, but that'll do it. That'll be my take on Scream. Definitely watch it if you haven't seen it. You'll enjoy it. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button, join Movie Emporium, hit the notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. Of course, comment below on any video that you watch on my channel. But otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for checking out Movie Emporium. I really appreciate it. If you want to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button and the bell at the top. Find out what's coming next for Movie Emporium. Also, check out these two videos. They're amazing. I think they're awesome. I think you'll enjoy them too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.